Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Experience Victoria information session, talking about our latest round of CivVic Labs. My name is Mark Newman. I'm the head of CivVic Labs, and we'll be here to get you all up to date and give you all the information you need to best understand what's coming up with this program in partnership with DJ Sir. I'd first like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we gather. I'm beaming in from Richmond, which is Wurundjeri Wurrung people land of the Kulin Nation. And I'd like to pay my respects to any elders past and present, and extend that welcome to any First Nations people joining today. Thank you so much for everyone for your interest and jumping online today. Hopefully this will be able to give you a bit more information and context about the program, as well as answer any questions that you have as well. I've actually just put in a little message into the comments to ask where everyone else is beaming in from. I really like to hear that, and particularly this program with its potential regional focus. It's always great to hear where people are coming in from, so please feel free to drop a comment into the chat there. As I go through to a bit of an overview of what today's session will involve, I will start off with a bit of a, as I say, general overview of what CivVic Labs is and give that explainer for those who are less familiar. We're then very luckily joined by Mirerva Holmes to be able to talk through a bit more context around this challenge and why this challenge. So I'll be bringing her on stage a little bit later on. We'll then go back to me to give a bit more details about the actual application process and everything that's involved there. And then we'll make sure to reserve plenty of time for our Q&A to ensure that if there's any questions that we can answer, to address those as well. Just in terms of a few other housekeeping things, please feel free to enter any questions, as people already are, into the comment section. So I know that we've got one message already there of, will this be recorded? Yes, this will definitely be recorded and available on the LaunchVic website and also sent out to anyone who registers. So if you do need to jump out to get a drink of water, or you have to jump off for a second, or you get disconnected, please don't stress. You will be able to access this later on, but the advantage of being here live is the participation in the Q&A. So in terms of entering in questions, there may be times where I can answer them on the fly, as I just have with that question around being recorded. But for other questions that are a bit more complicated or aren't in line with what we're talking about at that stage, we will address those in the Q&A at the end. So please feel free to put those questions in if and whenever you have those come to mind. There's a couple of people from the LaunchVic team live in the chat ready to assist. So in addition to my live responses, there may be some messages around different links or any other supplementary materials that can help with those questions. And then, finally, as I said, the session will be recorded. So please feel free to jump into the comments whenever you can. We've got a few people coming in from Melbourne, and then I saw someone beaming in actually from their class. So hopefully you're not missing too much valuable content, but there's plenty of valuable content here too. So hopefully that's interesting and helpful for everyone. Excellent. So I'll kick off with a bit of an overview. So for those of you who are, as I say, not familiar with the CivVic Labs program, CivVic Labs is LaunchVic's pre-accelerator program where we partner with government departments and agencies to help solve the biggest challenges. So it's a 6-week program, and we really do focus on enabling new and emerging startups with these potential solutions to the challenge and connecting them in with the government departments in mind. This all makes a lot more sense once you get the context of the challenge statement, which we'll talk about in a little second. But really the intent for these CivVic Labs programs is to help facilitate that agile co-design process between the public and private sectors, and then help support startups to identify early product market fit or at least problem solution fit. Our whole intent is to hopefully take you from whatever stage of idea you have at the beginning of this program to something that can launch, scale, be announced, whatever that outcome at the end looks like, to be all the more impressive and exciting by the end. So obviously with that direct support and connection in with the government as well. In terms of some of the nitty-gritty, so one of the benefits of this program is that you do actually receive some equity-free funding to participate in the program. So each of the 10 startups selected will be provided with $12,500, which is really exciting and hopefully helps founders who are really at that early stage take that first step and try to build a product And then at the end of the program, we're very fortunate as well to be providing 2 startups a further $25,000, all in equity-free seed funding, to further build out that solution at the conclusion of the program. I'll talk a bit more about what that process looks like a little bit later on. And so then for this CivVic Labs Challenge, as you hopefully all are aware, we're helping or looking at this idea of how might technology transform Victoria's tourism, hospitality, and events experience. So this is an area that I'm really excited to see some innovation in and think there's plenty of opportunities. And so to get a bit more context on this, I'm going to be bringing on Mirerva Holmes onto stage now. So let me just bring Mirerva in. Hello, Mirerva. How are you?
Good, thanks, Mark. How are you?
Yes, doing well, thank you. Very excited for this and keen to get a bit more detail. And so for this next little section, I'm really excited that we've got you to fill in the gaps a little bit. So I'm going to pass over to you, but I'll still be controlling slides. So whenever you need me to move to the next slide, just give me that heads up and I'll click her along to the next one. But otherwise, over to you, Mirerva.
Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Mirerva Holmes, and I'm the Manager of Tourism Industry within the Tourism Events and Entities branch. And great to see some people online from Angus. I'm an alumni of the school. So also beaming in from Jara country, and I'd like to acknowledge the Dja Dja Wurrung people of where I'm coming from today in Castlemaine. Tourism Events and Entities, a very sexy and exciting name, is part of the Department of Jobs, Skills, Industry and Regions, or DJSIR. We call it DJ Sir, with a bit of a high five there. And a quick caveat that the department represents the funding and supply side of the sector, whereas Visit Victoria is our demand driving and marketing agency for tourism, sports and major events, which is the public interface. So we're the department that provides funding to all the entities, and our purpose is to drive sustainable economic growth in the Victorian visitor economy, which includes tourism, events and the hospitality sectors. So when you hear tourism, we're also talking about events and hospitality. We also provide policy, strategy, industry development and investment facilitation advice to both the government and industry. And we also work with tourism and events entities across the state, including Visit Victoria, as I mentioned, the Melbourne Convention Bureau, the Australian Grand Prix Corporation, Puffing Billy Railway Board, and the Victorian Convention and Event Trust, which is the Melbourne Convention Exhibition Centre, and the new Geelong Convention Centre, Niall Banyul, down on the foreshore there in Geelong. Next slide, thanks, Mark. I need to move my slide too. There we go. So why are we interested in this program? Just setting the scene a little bit. Tourism spend in Victoria is expected to reach $50.9 billion in 2029, and that's an increase of 27% over the next 5 years. And over 105 million visitors are expected by 2029, and that's an increase of 21%. So there's huge growth in this sector. Tourism plays a vital role as a key driver of job creation and makes up 1 in 14 jobs in the state in 2023-24, with a total of 288,800 jobs. Just to put that into context, we're a bigger sector than agriculture and financial services, for example. As a rule, tourism and events is considered in the service sector, which makes it one of the largest employing areas in Australia. And more importantly, family-run and small businesses are the bedrock of our industry and are passionate about showcasing their products and experiences to the world. And to quote restaurateur Chris Lucas, who some of you might know, he's a large restaurateur here in Melbourne, Sydney, Geelong, with Chin Chin Society Grill Americano. He presented yesterday at our Hospitality Now forum with the Melbourne Food and Wine Festival down at Point Leo, and he said Australia is made up of small business and hospitality being one of those crucial areas. Next slide, thanks, Mark. So why are we interested in this? Why are we doing this? Visitor expectations are changing globally, and growing demand for inclusive and accessible experiences, importantly, as well as advancements in technology, which shift the way visitors' experiences are delivered and participated in. Operators face challenges staying competitive, managing their business operations and using data effectively, and managing risk and resilience. So think about the fires up at the Grampians, floods, COVID. There's a number of really practical things that some of the sector are missing, and risk and resilience is a big part of that. An evaluation we conducted last year identified that many regional tourism businesses in Victoria lack the resources to invest in innovation which have implications for the sector's long-term competitiveness, and that also includes attracting investment and creation of new products for the state. Experience Victoria 2033 is our 10-year strategic plan for the visitor economy, and it envisions a sector that thrives on innovation and excellence. By 2033, we aim to push boundaries, turning ideas into brilliant businesses, products and events, creating richer and more memorable visitor experiences. To achieve this goal, our industry needs exposure to fresh, innovative ideas and investment opportunities, and that's why we've partnered with LaunchVic. Next slide, thanks, Mark. What we're looking for to establish, quite simply and quite easily, not really, but with your help, hopefully, to establish Victoria as a leading global destination with innovative and outstanding experiences. And we're calling on Victorian startups to push the boundaries and transform how people experience Victoria. So some of those things might look like creating new visitor experiences, or optimising the experience of existing attractions, helping operators evolve the way they manage their business and engage customers, increasing accessibility and safety of Victorian experiences for people of all identities, cultures and abilities, supporting operators to better prepare for and manage crisis, capturing and using data to better understand and manage and grow visitation, so you can't manage what you can't measure, making it easier for visitors to discover and travel to attractions, venues and regions, and also any other technology that could transform the way people experience travel, tourism and hospitality in Victoria. So think of how you yourselves might interact with travel, attending a gig, eating at a restaurant and enjoying an experience like the penguins down at Phillip Island. We really want to be pushing the limits of our creativity, driving towards a global destination, how you can make us more competitive against places like New York or more sophisticated against destinations like Bali. So keeping people in Victoria and attracting to Victoria, which in essence is to make people spend more, stay longer and go further, which are the three quintessential targets of yield, dispersal and length of stay. And the last slide, thanks, Mark. So how will we support you? Mentors from the industry, promotion from government, ongoing connections. And then also there's a lot of information that's online, which we'll share with you as well. So recommend having a proper look at the Experience Victoria 2033 strategy, or EV33, which is on our website, as well as diving into the brand of Victoria with Visit Victoria's website. There's a heap of information on their corporate site as well. And also there's substantial research on our tourism website that tells you about visitors and the deeper dive on workforce and visitor needs. So go hard on your ideas and think to how you would want to experience Victoria for yourself, with your friends and also your families. That's all from me.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Mirerva. Yeah, I think genuinely the connections that you and the team have already illustrated that you have into industry and that ability to, showcase the great work that the teams are going to do in this program, I think, it's such a ripe opportunity, as well as, this just being such an excellent problem space to be working in. So I know I'm really excited to be working in it. So very keen to be bringing in our startups to do the same. Awesome. For the time being, I'm going to let Mirerva go off stage for a second. So Mirerva, we'll check back in with you once we get to the Q&A. Thank you so much, Mirerva, for that explainer. So for this next little section, I'm going to go through a few more of the key program details, specifically around applying for the program and some of the key curriculum and involvements of what's actually in the program. So what to actually expect in this program? As I've said, it's a 6-week program, and taking the ideas that you come in with and hopefully pushing out some really great products and potential businesses. So that's the kind of overall intent. And so to do that, we run a series of workshops over that 6-week program where we'll help you with problem statement formulation, value proposition, customer insights, prototyping, pitching practice, and a whole lot of other key content that will help you build out those initial business foundations. But the other key part of it is that we provide a lot of mentoring sessions, and these are really tangible and really direct and catered to the cohort. They are specifically targeting the needs and requirements of the startups coming in. And so those sessions can be with either startup industry, who LaunchVic obviously have great connection and representation of, but almost more importantly, I would say, is those industry vertical experts. So as Mirerva was just referencing, there's some really great industry partners and representatives who are going to be involved in this program, and all there to help startups coming in better understand those industries, those potential customers, and the challenges that are involved in that industry. So they're the kinds of people that we'll look to involve, but we also take a lot of insight from who we select to the program to who we bring in as mentors. That's how much targeting and tailoring we like to do. And so in terms of the process for selection into the program, it's really a 5-step process. The first one being you need to submit an expression of interest. There's then an application process, which is more of a formal process to submitting your idea. There's then an interview process where you're first shortlisted and then conduct that 15-minute interview over Zoom. And then finally, if successful, selected for the program. I'm going to talk about all 5 of those in a bit more depth now. Firstly, the expression of interest form. The key thing to understand is that submitting an EOI is compulsory as part of the application process. To get into the next stage, you just need to submit an EOI. So it's purposefully designed to be quick and easy. There's no specific check between EOI and application phase, but this is just to help us gauge how many startups are actually available and interested in this program. So you do need to submit that EOI nice and early, I should say. It is quick and easy to do so. The EOIs close at 1 o'clock on the 21st of August. So I'd strongly recommend getting in your EOI well and truly before then. It should only take a couple of minutes maximum, and it's really capturing, as you can see from the little screenshot here, your key details, and then a small excerpt of your idea. And I know there was a question earlier that we might reference a bit later around the length of text in this EOI process. This is just to give us a sense of what you're working on and is not a formally assessed process, which is why we don't ask for too much information in that section. So don't stress if you can't get your whole pitch into that 25 words. In terms of the actual application process, so as I've said, everyone who completes that EOI will be invited to apply via the email address you provide in that EOI form, so make sure you get that right. The application includes both a written and a video response section, so I'll talk through those in a bit more detail. But in terms of what we actually look at from those applications, there's 2 sections. One is eligibility. So there's 5 key eligibility criteria, being Victorian based, which means that you as a founder need to be based in Victoria, and your place of business, your operations are going to be Victorian based. You need to be a startup or have the potential to be defined as a startup. And I think we've just gotten a question from Mark Elliott around the definition of a startup. You don't need to have a registered business at the start of the program to be defined as a startup or to meet the eligibility criteria for us at the beginning of the program. There is an expectation that by the end of the program, you would have a registered business and an ABN, but we can talk more about that post-selection. But what we look for in that definition of a startup, there's a very technical definition that you can look for in the program guidelines, and you can find more information on all of these in the program guidelines. But there is a specific definition around the potential to innovate, the potential to scale, which is, as LaunchVic, as the Victorian startup agency, we're looking to support those businesses. So please do check out that definition. And it doesn't mean that you have to meet that exact definition right now, but your idea or your business has to have the potential to become that. So check out that one. In terms of the idea or early stage, the reason why this is an eligibility criteria is because this program is all designed, as I said, to focus on the foundations. And so we want people coming in as early as a back of the napkin idea that you've just come up with, all the way up to some initial traction maybe, or not even recurring revenue. But really, once you're getting that recurring consistent revenue for your idea, that's probably the barrier for where we would see you being too advanced for this program, because we will just be really focusing on that early stage idea development. So that's why we focus on that idea or early stage definition. Program participation, you need to be able to confirm you can actually participate in the program. The program is an in-person expectation, so there's 7 program days that are all in contact, and you can see the dates in the program guidelines. Your attendance is expected at all of those, as well as any supplemental required events. So there's our showcase event, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and some others. So you need to be able to confirm your participation there. And then you also need to adhere to the Victorian government policy on ESG prohibited activities. Again, I'd recommend reading those in the guidelines. In terms of the selection criteria, I won't talk about these in too much depth because it is much easier to read them in text. But essentially, when we look at people's applications, there's these key areas that we're looking at: action and alignment and impact, which are all very much related to the problem you're solving, the customers you want to help support, and the solution you have in mind. The applicant's capability and capacity are really around you as a founder and how much capability and capacity you're bringing to deliver on this idea. So there is an assessment around that. And then finally, there is an assessment of support, which it says LaunchVic, but it's also from the department also. And this is looking at how much we can actually support you in participating in the program. Kind of coming back to that idea or early stage definition, we want to ensure that everyone coming into this program is at a place where we can actively support their development of their idea. And so that's why we look at that piece as well. So there's some questions around that. But as I say, strongly recommend checking out the guidelines for a bit more detail on all of those, or you can ask some questions in the Q&A as well. So should you be shortlisted for an interview post that application process, we will email you an invite and set out a time. Again, the dates and times are all in the guidelines. The actual interview is very short, so it's usually about 15 minutes, which includes a bit of time for Q&A as well. And really, we have already looked at you as a founder and your startup idea in the written application and the video response question that you have to do prior. The purpose of the interview is for us to better understand you and your startup idea, and then also be able to ask any specific questions that we have. So it's a really short interview process, but a really good one to get to know everyone a bit better before making that final selection. And should you be selected, startups are required to sign a contract agreement to participate. There's certain requirements that we need there. To make that easier, we will endeavour to send out the contract or a template version of that contract prior to you being selected. So typically everyone who interviews for the program will get an opportunity to read that contract, so that should you be selected, you can then be easily able to sign that upon selection. And then in terms of the funding, so as I've said, there's $12,500 for each startup who's selected for the program. That funding is provided at the end of the program, should you complete all the required aspects of the program, predominantly being participation in the program and your ongoing commitment, essentially. So there's more details around that in the contract, I should say. But yeah, that funding comes at the end of the program. If you have any questions about that, again, please feel free to chuck it in the Q&A. And then at the end of the program, there are 2 pitching opportunities, which we include and require all the startups to participate in. So the judged pitch, as I'll call it, is a pitching in a closed door environment. So essentially, we will curate a judging panel at the end of the program to assess your pitch. Don't worry, we go through pitching in the program and make sure you're well and truly comfortable to pitch by the end. But we will have this judging panel assess your startup pitch and then have a short Q&A. And based on that process, 2 startups of the 10 selected for the cohort will be selected for an additional $25,000 worth of funding. Following that judged pitch process, we will then have a showcase pitch, which is a public event where you can bring your friends, your families, your supporters, and we'll also bring everyone in terms of industry, mentors, startup ecosystem all together. And the purpose of that one is to really showcase the great work that you've been doing and give you that opportunity to shine. So the formal judging will happen before that. So it's all a bit more relaxed in that way. And so the showcase pitch really is a celebration of the whole program's efforts. And the whole program is designed around that so that we can give you the best opportunity to pitch in that closed door environment and then give you another chance to showcase your great work to everyone in the public as well. In terms of some of the key dates, again, the guidelines is the best source of information for all of the dates required of the program, but I've just highlighted a few here. So obviously, most pressingly, the expressions of interest. So those close again on 1 p.m. on the 21st of August. So be sure to submit that short EOI form then. We'll then send out that application form following that on the 22nd, and that next key date is the 8th of September, which is when the formal application process closes. And then in terms of the actual program dates, the program will be kicking off on the 22nd of October and finishing on the 3rd of December. So ensuring that you have availability. The specific dates, again, are in the guidelines, but just knowing that that's the general idea of when that'll happen. Something I haven't highlighted, but is maybe slightly different to if you've ever seen a previous CivVic challenge, is that our judging and showcase process will actually be in the new year this time, because the program is ending so close to the end of the year. And we recognize that this industry in tourism, events and hospitality, that's when really things are kicking off. And so we felt it more appropriate to have an event in early next year. And then there's a great opportunity for teams who have come out of the program, are able to keep working on their idea and develop that traction over that kind of summer break time, and then be able to showcase that great work in the new year as well. So that's just another key thing in case there's a bit of confusion there. But again, happy to answer any more specific questions as well. Excellent. All right. I've done enough talking there for a little while. So I'm going to bring Mirerva back onto the stage, and then we might kick off our Q&A, because I can see there's been a few questions coming through. Hey, Mirerva, welcome back. Excellent. So I'm going to go through some of these questions now that we're starting to curate. I'm going to see if there's any that are maybe more your alignment rather than me, just to give me a tiny break. There's a question here around, is there any conflict of interest issues? If I work for a tourism agency, does that make my application ineligible as an individual with an idea separate to my day job? I would say no, there shouldn't be any conflict of interest. The conflict of interest would maybe lie with your own employer and your own agency. So maybe just double check what some of the rules are there. But Mirerva, I don't see any issue with that. In fact, I'd see it as an advantage, right? There could be some market intelligence that this person has by working in industry.
I'd probably suggest that's a question for the organisation that, Mark, you work for. But as Mark Newman said, I can't see that potentially being an issue. But I don't want to be the one to confirm or deny that.
Good thought. Yes, the onus is probably on yourself, Mark Elliott, to clarify with that tourism agency to make sure that there's no conflict of interest there. Mark, I know you've got another question. Actually, are there any guidelines on what the initial funding can be used for? Great question. So the $12,500, which is provided for the 10 startups. It's pretty open in terms of how you want to use that funding, because we understand that people coming in and doing this program might need to use the funding for certain reasons, just to ensure that they can participate and actually take a chance on this. So there's not as much specific requirements around how that funding is used. But the additional funding, so should you be one of the two teams selected for the additional funding of $25,000, there is a bit more additional rigor or expectations around how that funding is used, which is all more towards building your business, creating traction, and developing your idea further. So that there's a bit more, framework around the spending of that additional funding there. And then we've got a question around scheduling. If there are scheduling issues, how flexible would you be, especially as the dates in the program have already been established? Great question. So we do expect, as I said, everyone to participate fully on the program days that have been allocated. So you can find that full list of questions in the program, that full list of dates in the program guidelines. We do understand that life happens, and that on an occasion there may be a time where either you're sick or something really truly does happen where you can't make it, and we kind of understand that. But contractually, there is an expectation that you are participating in the full program. So if there's any dates that you're unsure about, I'd recommend getting in contact with us. You can email us. I believe the email address is probably somewhere in the chat, but if it's not, I'll ask one of the LaunchVic team to chuck that in the chat now. That's probably the best bet if you have any specific questions around a date that you can or can't be available for. So the reason why we want everyone to be there for the full program is so they can get the full benefit. As I've explained, and as Mirerva has hinted, we're going to be bringing in some really great industry people and giving you a unique opportunity to connect and better understand from these people. And we don't want you to miss out on that opportunity and feel that it's expected that everyone should be there and able to do that. So yeah, just check what your dates look like and what your availability looks like, and then go from there. All right, we've got another question here. Will regional startups get priority? Good question. There's nothing in our guidelines that specifically targets regional startups in that way to get a priority for participating. I would say that if you have more market knowledge, more capability or capacity based on your location, there could be a potential rationale there that you better understand how to make this a real working startup. So I would say there's nothing to say that, yes, we're going to support or we're going to choose regional startups more by any definition, but there could be rationale in that you being regionally based has helped you come up with this idea or better connect with the problem statement. So I would just recommend checking out the guidelines and understanding that. But to answer the question sort of in a binary way, no, there's no specific priority given to regional startups.
Can I just add to that a little bit, Mark, as well? Just do need to put it out there too. This is being funded out of the Regional Tourism Investment Funds, which is the money that came from the Commonwealth Games cancellation. So there isn't a stipulation that the prioritisation goes towards regional projects, but I guess the prioritisation goes to the good idea, right? So we need to focus on those submissions that really do work for Victoria, but also there's no, Metropolitan will of course be considered, and it might also be that idea is supporting Melbourne as the hub from which people land and then disperse out to the regions. So there's, I think if it's a great idea, it will be absolutely considered regardless of metro or regional.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, obviously the focus of this challenge is around Victoria, but as with my LaunchVic hat on, once we've helped you develop this really great idea that's gonna support us here, we want to see how you can keep growing that business further. So
totally. Yeah.
So
and I think that that's a really good important point, Mark, is that the product created in Victoria for Victoria's use is also being celebrated. We want to see that sort of commercial opportunity go global. And we don't have a lot of that previously in tourism events and hospitality for Victoria.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's great. Okay, I'm not seeing another question come up just yet, but I'm going to give a couple of seconds for everyone to think of any of those because I don't want to shortchange anyone with that opportunity. But yes, I guess the key things for everyone to keep in mind at this time is that EOI closing date. So it is coming up the 21st. And as I say, that whole process is designed to be quick and easy. So please, if you're umming or erring about whether you want to do it, my recommendation would be to fill out the EOI because, as I say, if you don't fill out that EOI, you won't get the opportunity to actually apply later on. So I would prioritize checking out the program, seeing if it's of interest to you, and if it is, expressing that interest as soon as you can. So I'm still not going to see any further questions seemingly. So I think we can probably wrap it up there. I'm trying to speak as slowly as possible to give everyone the opportunity if anyone does have any final questions. I should say that if you do think of something after this or you're watching this recorded and you still have a question, you can email us. So please feel free to contact us there and ask us those questions. And then, we can hopefully address those there. We do just have a final question. Excellent. Miles Birch has asked a question. Can our concept or idea change midway through the program? That is a fantastic question, Miles. And yes, absolutely. We go through a design process of diverging and converging. And should you be selected, you'll hear a lot more about this. But yeah, there's totally an expectation that whether it's changing the exact problem you're focused on, the customer profile you're focused on, or the application of that solution, what you write in the application is definitely not set in stone. And we've got a pretty storied history of startups coming into the program looking to do one thing and then spitting out to do something different by the end. And those are often some of the most successful teams that come out of the end, because they've gone through that process of really understanding the problem, really understanding the industry, and really making sure they're building something that's going to impact. So yeah, I would say we want to see your best idea come forward now, but we understand that things will change and update throughout the program as well. Excellent. All right. Well, otherwise, thank you very much. I can see plenty of thank yous in the chat, and those should all go towards you as well, Mirerva. Thank you so much for your time and being able to share those insights around the industry and your connection here. Really excited, as I said, to be working on this program. And so thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Mirerva, and look forward to working with all of you in the future.
Thanks, everyone.
Excellent. Awesome. Thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.